Duo that's banned away. The Nocturne may be further banned as well, who knows. Meanwhile, with Griffin banning Lucian, remember, MVP are the only team to have played Tara E, looked great on it. And if you follow up from there, the Singed is a potential ban. Maybe that's a second round pick. We'll wait and see. But these are the things to consider. But a lot of meta picks. It feels like every game the meta changes. Surprising that MVP banned Talia on blue side because the pinch could have been on. But it seems like they were respecting a strong red side 2 picks for the side of Griffin.
Well, we'll see exactly what the first pick can actually be here from MVP. Aurelia, of course, understandable ban to come in second, but the final ban may tell us a story.
All
MVP
right.
It's going to be taken away. Yeah, it is surprising, but what does that mean for MVP? What are they going to prioritize? Is it a lot of priority on the Camille? We know that beyond now, Yondu really does like to get in the faces early.
There's a lot of champions, right? Vlad, Zoe, Camille, Yasuo. These are all champions that could definitely be first picked. Even a Nocturne first pick has an outside chance of happening because MVP know that Griffin have seen Tarzan defaulting onto it. We see one support that pairs very well with the Bruiser banned away in the Fiddlesticks. See where we go from here from MVP. There's so much open when it comes to first picks.
We know that Max also is fantastic on the sort of caster-based supports, but I think banning a support feels like a bit of a throwaway, as this was the predicted first pick from MVP. So the Camille is going to be locked in, but Griffin now, so many options.
Maybe Nocturne Zoe is a duo, just because then you have the Zoe for
Pope.
Pope.
Or that Vladimir Yasuo could come in here if they want to.
Very possible as well. If you want Vlad, you probably have to take it in this round, because seen as the safest bot lane champion to take in that carry role. You go from here. It's very, very interesting for Griffin. No guarantees. Good call there. The Vladimir priority been very, very high. It's now the standard marksman in a previous meta, if you know what I mean, which is a really weird thing to say.
Super weird.
But if you want the Nocturne, you probably need to take it now, and seems like Griffin will take it. I wonder if they will take the Zoe further from here. Wait and see. The Lulu is also very high priority for Radha, because Radha's more of the Lulu Galio than the carry player. Chovy was the Yasuo that popped up for Griffin.
Yeah.
But MVP have led the way, Atlas. They've been on the ball with picks, and we mentioned that Zoe already. If they wanted Zoe Nocturne, they'd have to take it together, we said, for Griffin. But we've seen so far Nocturne cramping the style of the skipping mid laner in Zoe and doing it well previous to now, so they take it anyway because of the power of the Zoe pick on this patch.
Yeah, and actually like the flexibility MVP gave themselves as well, because they knew there were only 2 picks, and they could have got either the Nocturne or the Zoe or the Vladimir out of the 3 that they really wanted to get. And the Ezreal now being considered, so Maha certainly sticking to the regular 80 carries.
It's a fun timing though, because on the one hand, it is likely the Vladimir would be in the bot lane role, but if there was ever a thought from Griffin to want to pick an 80 carry, Lucian was banned, Ezreal's taken, and the Kai'Sa is a bit lower priority. It's good, but it doesn't have the lane control, and if it falls behind, loses turret, the game may end before. But likely to be Ezreal versus Vlad in the bot lane. The Lulu mid lane would rather playing as close to 100% likelihood. See the bans coming here, and they seem skeptical that Yondu himself will be rocking the Camille, because we do see a jungle ban, the Skarner taken away from Yondu.
Feels like Skarner in the current meta is almost an instant loss though, so I'm confused myself as to why that one has been taken away.
Well, they're the only team that won with it. They actually, MVP,
that is true.
have one victory on the Skarner. I don't think the Skarner was a pivotal reason for the victory, but still, do see a bit of respect there, and the Soraka bans continue. Seeing a lot of them given her laning power.
Well, of course, Lehen's having a brilliant performance on the champion as well. Makes sense that the respect is going to come in there, and now the support bans fly in. The Morgana to be answered then by the Rakan ban, which I absolutely love because no black shield to stop his engage.
Personally, I would have liked to have seen next to the Morgana a Tahm Kench ban, because Tahm Kench and Zoe together can do so much poking.
And Ezreal
Tahm
in the
Kench
lane.
and Ezreal, so we're going to get to as a laning duo we've seen already. Nocturne dives in, Tahm Kench eats someone. That's sounding pretty good, so I would love to see Tahm Kench on the side of MVP.
Well, they can round out their roster here, so if Max has a different idea, which, let's be honest,
Since
he
Tahm
often
Kench
does.
is really powerful here.
Yeah. Have the opportunity to do it. Max is probably a little bit upset about it because it's a little bit more boring than his regular style, but he was always a brilliant Tahm Kench player. See whether they actually look for it. Max at the moment is just looking for an excuse to play Zyra or Brand, but see whether he actually finds that button.
Tahm Kench is so
It feels like it
appealing.
just picks itself, but no, it's Galio.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, that makes sense.
Oh, Max. I love this game. I love this team. All right, come on, Griffin. What do you got for us? You have to back up a Galio potentially support, or maybe anywhere else on the map.
Seeming like support decided they wanted the Hextech Ultimatum and the
They
Heroes
do get
Entrance
the
duo.
combo.
They're going to get it in some weird spots. Who's going support is the question for MVP. Likely to be the Galio. This was the most obvious Tahm Kench ever, but they decided they wanted to fight more than they wanted to poke, and they had Zoe Ezreal, so that's kind of a weird thing to try and diagnose. But MVP always do it the MVP way. With all that information there, interesting to see the Gangplank taken into Singe. Obviously, you're getting a lot of free farm, not going to be a lot of threat on the Pirate, but also the sort of lane where Singe might just look at it and procs.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting, and I want to know what the thought process is here. I'm thinking about the Galio taunt being good if someone's going to jump on top of you with Paranoia, but he does have a spell shield. It's all a little bit interesting as to how they actually managed to play out this lane.
It's pretty peculiar because they have super hard initiation and two people poking against a full-on fight comp who's kind of happy to stick in one spot and fight. That's what Vladimir Gangplank is all about. So we're going to have to be convinced about the support Galio when Tahm Kench was begging. MVP do it the MVP way. And Griffin kind of look at this and say, well, Crisis averted in some ways, but still a powerful draft for MVP.
Yeah, and I feel like Griffin are just going to be like, well, we dodged a bullet there. We gave them what was an obvious Tahm Kench pickup, and now it's going to be a Galio instead, unless something's been working out for MVP in scrims. Something about having the combo that we normally see mid and jungle working as far as bot and jungle is concerned instead. So guys, a lot to unpack as we get into our first game of our final match of the day. Very exciting stuff. Max, pretty good at picking weird things. Let's see how it goes as we head to the Rift.
That was a bit of a fight there.
Yeah, there was a bit of a rap battle from the fans in the audience. You can see still a little bit of a scuffle going on. I'll let you know if any punches get thrown. Lovely people of the audience.
ADD, who had a big off-season in solo queue, hitting rank 1 about a week ago. Still top 3 as there is the BBQ Oliver skin that they haven't used yet.
Is that what he managed to get? What Max managed to get when they took down BBQ Oliver?
I mean, this skin is like
that was
just
the
Prince
spoils.
money. I'm willing to sell out that skin. It's so good.
Oh, it is so good.
The chicken dance is so fun.
It's that and the Moo Cow Alistair that I think. Oh, and Pajamas Mouth. Meow Kai. Pretty damn good. Max knows exactly what the most important thing is.
You know, I also thought of this.
Oh no!
Hey, we didn't say it.
I'm not. We're not talking about it.
Let's go back to this.
Okay, good. It's so good.
I know. The chicken dance, A+.
Well, if you guys were wondering what you're supposed to take first on support Galio, it is the Winds of War. So there we go. Tarzan, a bit of a hipster Nocturne skin. That one, when that came out, was a very, very long time ago, but not a lot of people really saw it.
Ravager Nocturne or something?
Weird, but it's like at least 5 years.
It wasn't his release skin either. It actually came out a little bit after his release.
It was the frosty one and then the one that looked basically the same.
Yeah. They're like, I'm a little spookier. Yeah. And then they released actual spooky Nocturne later.
Oh, it's my favorite.
It's not ADD's favorite time, taking Paralyze. Level 1 is pretty painful for the Singed.
It's just chilling out with 100 health.
Do note, it is Resolve Tree Gangplank, so he kind of realized he couldn't go Klepto in this lane. But he does get a nice health lead his mid lane.
Oh, there's the fast flash fingers from Rather. Exactly what BDD wishes he had have done in games prior.
How depressing. He has to actually give up the Scuttler. He doesn't have Smite.
This is why you pick Galio support.
I mean, level 2 Galio is actually really powerful in a skirmish, and Yondu walked straight through mid and said, hey, my Scuttle. And you know what? He got it.
Yeah. Well, Ian certainly wins The award in my heart, if I was going to give one out for most improved player for last season, it goes to Ian. This guy really turned around what was an obvious worst mid laner in the LCK at the beginning of the season to pretty good towards the end.
Turnaround is right. As you mentioned, he's had good seasons before, but he started off spring in pretty abysmal form. Put it together by the end, so credit where credit's due. Sounds backhanded, but you've got to take the positive side of that, which is that when his team needed him, which was around the promotion tournament, he was able to level up. Speaking of level ups, Yondu will probably have the run of scuttles this game. I feel like Zoe and Camille is a lot of jungle pressure on Alulu. If Cleanse is ever on cooldown, you have to be so paranoid about wraparound ganks from the E-Max Camille, which is how you skill in the jungle. You max the hook shot first. Yep. On the bot side of the map, Galio and Alistar are pretty similar champions, but the Ezreal should have to push early. So Galio will be able to react first. And look at this season, we mentioned the Nocturne Shen, the Nocturne Open, snapped up by Griffin.
But Yondu's trying to turn this one around here as that's going to be an immediate oranges eaten by Sword, and he's actually taking very little damage, but that fling was fantastically well timed. 200 health, and the flash used very late is going to get him to safety.
And with the damage amplification, not enough to take someone down. Still feels good to get the flash advantage between the two as Ian picks up
a ghost and then grabs himself the redemption.
Always spoilt for choice. Is the good old Zoe.
So many buttons to press.
And
so many
proxies
things
on Atlas. But is the proxy going to be punished? Yeah, it seems like yes.
Seems like yes, pretty much immediately. As ADD is going to at least get a little bit scared, and he gets Skirmish smitten as well.
No, it's not smitten.
I know, but Skirmish is smitten. Sounds hilarious. Tarzan gets flung and taken away.
And AD doesn't use his flash, so I've actually played quite a lot of Singed in the off-season. It was a nice palate cleanser.
Are you one of those players, Papa?
Well, you see, I was a little bit down after Korea lost the international tournament, so I just wanted to run around and fling people and laugh, so I played a lot of Singed, and that was therapeutic for me.
Okay.
And kind of the way it goes, if you proxy pre-6, you want to get away with doing it without using your flash. After 6, you kind of can ult and be fine most of the time, especially with Nimbus Cloak making you even more elusive. So keeping his flash there was important because flash down Singed is a fiercely melee champion and gets punished quite a lot.
Yep. Once he hits 6, of course, the movement speed can be helping him, but at the moment, certainly not a case. And you were talking about having Rift Scuttle priority, and that is going over to Yondu easily. And look at all of the vision that MVP has on this top side of the map. They know exactly where they want to be focusing. They're going to do so quite easily. Okay, Ian now in a little bit of trouble, but the Duskbringer is all that can be offered from Tarzan. Yondu staying out of vision, now going to be seen as he does manage to get the hookshot. Remember, no flash available for Sword. He's down very, very low, and I don't even think the fling was used. There is first blood going over to ADD.
They actually open and stack the CC, so it's the stun into the fling. Early, they were able to take him down anyway, and the wards are there, Atlas, because that's what proxying does. While the proxy was answered early, the thing about Singed, the reason why he's so strong into tank matchups, and to some degree the gangplank is, if you're able to keep the enemy under turret, he ain't got no vision, and you can go behind, you can put down vision, you create so much map pressure that's not that different to having your enemy jungler already there for a gank, because you know in the future, if the enemy jungler goes topside, he's going to be lighted up, he's going to be predictable, and it's very easy to set up a gank, because this is also a decent spot for a gank.
Well, ADD is going to try and run away. He's going to get feared, but yeah, not a worry. Don't chase the Singed, and Tarzan knows exactly that he should live.
Nimbus Cloak is so good on Singed, gets that extra ghost effect without even having to buy a Shirelia's. Pops the ult, gets away, still has plenty of time in top, and it's kind of the downside of going the gangplank was getting nice health trades, but felt pressured enough to have to go Resolve Tree, so isn't even getting the gold generation that's implied by all the parlays. Now has fallen down as well, and they can continue to get Gangplank under turret, push in, get vision of Nocturne's jungle, and make the Nocturne predictable. As he's about to hit 6 and want to ult someone, that's the gold standard of any Singed game.
Yeah, and Sword also really likes it when minion waves are crashing together as well. You can put your barrels on top of each other. I just don't think a minion wave's going to hit a minion wave on their side of the map, because ADD is just going to continue shoving waves into turrets, and Sword's going to have to tank it himself if he wants to stack a wave. Certainly can get barrels in the right place if he does it, but I just feel like ADD has now been set up for exactly the type of Singed game that he wants to be playing.
And I think ADD set himself up with all the solo queue. Again, we mentioned a few times, but being top 3 solo queue lets you know your mechanics are feeling good. Your confidence has to be up. He was
doing it as a top laner as well.
He was #1 challenger, playing his champions like Poppy, Scion, the Singed as well in the past week, and that sort of confidence being reflected in his Singed play. I don't know if he played this champion last season, whether he would have had the same ability to shrug off what was, of course, a horror early season for MVP, losing game after game. None of those pressures after a 1-0 start, and looking good as ADD.
And the thing as well is that they were looking good in their first game of the season as well. I mean, against BBQ meant that we needed more samples in order to make sure that we understood how good, but it was clean League of Legends that they were demonstrating to us and understanding of the meta at the same time. So Griffin now behind about 800 gold isn't too much of a big deal, but if MVP continues to play smart, this could be a problem for the new team here in the LCK.
And MVP were born in the Fiesta. They've created so many crazy games that when the meta gets a bit more peculiar, you know that they're there to add an extra variable, but also they're very, very experienced on off-rolling on crazy champions. Max plays everything in the support role. This man has a quadra kill on Scion support.
I know I was actually bringing this up to you. I want to repeat a conversation we had on the bus on the way here, Papa, as there is a little bit of a scuffle in the bottom lane, but not quite happening just yet. And I was just talking to you about, you know, what if Max decides that, in fact, he wants to be the one that gets the gold, and they're playing some sort of, like, brand Zyra bottom lane, because
a wizard spot lane?
Max is such a good wizard. He's the bestest wizard.
I think the wizards are probably not going to come out in the LCK. The most you might see is, like, Vladimir Lulu as a duo lane. I guess that could happen. But you are correct in that he has the most experience in competitive mage play at support of probably any non-role swapped player, and that will be useful. We'll see. The brand will probably get at least one visit. The Zillion, I think, will come out at some point too. Those are some max specials right there. Yeah,
the Vel'Koz as well, certainly a max special, but don't know whether we're going to go that deep into very, very squishy mage territory.
Something might be going on to Rylai's first, coming through from Singe. I see a blasting wand already.
Could be the Liandry's first as well that we've seen in the past. In
very,
fact,
very
that
possible.
was our last Singe that we had.
Yeah, yesterday we saw Liandry's first, so wait and see. A lot of different options there.
I wonder what this Lulu is going to build. Speaking of builds, we've seen almost everything picked up on this particular champion.
Knowing rather, probably on the utility side rather than on the damage side.
Boring.
Banner of Command is going to probably come in, which, as you mentioned, is not quite the UCAL high damage build.
Yeah. But Yondu is going to be able to take away the Rift Herald as well. I mean, everything in the river, MVP has taken over. And we've seen this in the past. Nocturnes have been able to win games even though they've just foregone all control of the river. It happened in our last series.
But they've had priority in 3 lanes and they're against a Nocturne. So, like you say, they're set up to find these sort of leads, our MVP. They're doing it. So far, they're playing out their comp very, very well. Monopolizing Scuttle Crabs as they spawn. ADD there. Goes for a bit of a walk. Just wants to help out his mate Yondu.
He had nothing else to do as well. He just shoved another wave in.
But this is exactly how they should play it out, but this is also very fitting of patch 8.11. If you think of Griffin, they have always struck me as a greedy team. They don't pick for lane, they pick for teamfight. They will eventually have some great teamfight options, but if the poke from people like Ian, which you just saw on the screen, and Maha comes down first, and the gold lead is there for MVP, maybe the teamfight prowess of the 5 champions on the right side of the screen won't matter.
Ian really starting to do some damage now. Blasting Wand in his back pocket, as well as his Lost Chapter. That's without a whole item actually completed. Imagine when that Luden's Echo does get in there. True Shot Barrage just to clear out the minion wave as Max throws a Winds of War randomly in some direction. That was good fun.
Sometimes you just want to throw 2 chicken drumsticks at the enemy.
That's true. That's true. And in fact, we had chicken drumsticks thrown around here at the Sangami Stadium today. Thanks very much, BBQ.
They were actually boneless, but yeah, close enough.
Semantics.
I really need to see someone play this skin for or against BBQ. That hasn't happened yet.
At least they were here today, so we're getting close. We're getting close. As Ian, he's on the roam. As Maxie's looking for it, does manage to get the pull out of Viper, who's, oh my.
Really?
Just the tip! Wasn't even enough.
Now, to be fair, Zoe has had some pretty interesting hitbox kind of
changes and
checks that shouldn't have gone her way. That one looked like a hit, though.
Yeah, it did.
So I'm actually feeling hard done by for Ian that time.
Viper, however, is feeling very, very lucky. Ian comes down and very expertly takes down this minion wave. Picks up a barrier as well that he uses just for fun, picking up some items.
If you ever win a team fight as MVP, they also have the Ezreal, so their turret siege damage is safe. And the siege is on at some point. The moment you see a Zoe and an Ezreal, then it becomes correct to park 3 to 4 people in a lane and try to push down turrets. Speaking of pushing, got the Galio to do the heavy lifting on the push, and Ezreal just mop up the CS.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that Pilot's debut game was on the Ezreal last season as ADD. Okay, Yondu's going to make his way in, does manage to get down Shelly, but in goes the paranoia. They're trying to get out. Yondu does escape from Tarzan, but the flash is going to finish that one off. Ian just throwing buttons into absolutely nowhere, and they're unable to get the turret. Rather, now going to be turning up as Paddlestar does go wide, and the Singe just wants to be chased. They're not going to, though. It's just going to be a free kill going over to Griffin.
Really nice map movement. Lehens was topside as well on his famous Alistair that he got an MVP on in the promotion tournament. So they were actually ready for that Rift Herald play. They weren't going to lose a turret. They extend the laning phase, which Gangplank graciously accepts. He needs extra time with no Kleptomancy to even get his Trinity Force to start impacting the side lanes. A very important delay for the side of Griffin. And look at that. They even get a Rift Scuttler for the first time this game.
Yeah, Max, not actually in the lane. He's moved to mid lane at the moment. Was just picking up the leftover farm as Ian had moved towards the top side. Grabs himself a Chilling Smite and gives it to Rather.
Nice little adjustment in build here from Maha. He knows he's against the Vladimir, who's about to crest level 9. In fact, has level 9 already. Goes for a Vamp Scepter just for a bit of extra sustain, so he just doesn't get poked out by the targeted Q harass as the lane goes on.
Yeah. Also knows that he's probably going to be building the 3rd item, Blade of the Ruined King, much like our other Ezreals that we've seen. I believe it's largely been Ruler.
Not being able to go double tier in this meta with the games being shorter. Speaking of short, maybe Rather's life as he's down to 300 health.
Yeah, does have himself the shield from his room page, but Ian certainly looking scary in the mid lane, despite not being able to get any sort of CS advantage. He's sent the Lulu home.
Has
now
an item lead already, had the Ludens already completed at the time. And speaking of Ludens, there is a counter Ludens on the side of Rather to help with his wave clear. With that back, MVP smartly will go over to Ocean Drake, and these are the things that I really want to reward MVP for. A lot of ordered play about how they've been playing out the map. Land's taking a nice chunk. They've done a lot of chunk out one person and take an objective. Fight, get the minimum, which is often just a chunk out or a flash, and then turn it into an objective. And that's not necessarily something they were doing commonly in the spring season. Reward MVP when they're playing well. So far, their play has been very smart.
Yeah, and often the consistency that we had with MVP was that they'd always go for 50-50 barracks.
Yep.
That was basically the consistent move. This time around, it feels like there's just ordered play coming out from the team. Even the harassment coming in onto Lehens just then on the bottom side of the map felt like Ian was saying, I'll chunk down the cow, we can get some shoves onto this bottom side of the map and really open ourselves up. And it means that that river is very, very blue at the moment.
Leandri, as you mentioned, Atlas is going to be built on the Singe, so high damage build coming through. Very easily to stay in combat as the Singe with the poison trail, so you do proc the amplification of damage that comes through on that Leandris.
The auto attack speed battle was won by the Gangplank, meaning that ADD going to have a little bit of trouble. And you talk about the other possible Singed builds, it means that he is going to be relatively squishy, and Tarzan is going to have so much damage coming from this Nocturne. Vision available here, but you're going to spot it out with that control ward put down by Yondu.
I don't think Tarzan knows. He puts down a control ward of his own. I don't know if it's in range of the ward that AD had put on the Krugs. Here we go.
Yep, there's the old combo coming in. They get a really nice stun though, and there's the ultimate coming out from Rather. He's trying to turn it all around. The Cannon Barrage is doing nothing, but now the Trouble Bubble is going to miss. The hero's entrance comes down, the fling onto Rather. They get the 2 kills. Ian finally finding the buttons, and Rather, he's in no man's land. He's not going to be able to get out of this one. That's the double kill for Ian.
Cleaned up by the Zoe. That ward on the Krugs was the true MVP because they knew Nocturne was topside. The first roam came from Rather, and we thought it was going to go the way of Griffin. But nice cleanup, and all Griffin can do is pick up the turret on bot side.
Gonna have a look at it one more time. The Cannon Barrage didn't do a whole lot, but I really did like that rather got there at the right time. It just wasn't enough after everything else was said and done.
And the extra person who gets this fight because of the ward is Max, who can start walking out much earlier. The Alistar, of course, doesn't have a global to get there, but had the boots of mobility. Didn't know there'd be that much action so instantly. Now, bot lane turret is taken out, but the mid lane turret taking so much damage means, once again, MVP should see a trade up, not just in the 2-for-1 kills, but in the structures as well.
But the big victory here for Griffin is the fact that Viper has been free farming. He's so close to Spellbinder and Rabadon's very early on in this game. Before 20 minutes to have these big ticket items is pretty scary. His outer turret in the mid lane is very close to being dead, much like the top lane one was for a very long time, but he will grab himself the blue buff. Rift Scuttler goes over to Tarzan, and we've got a little bit of slow play at this point to gather our thoughts, because it was pretty exciting there for a moment. As in goes Viper to prove me wrong. That was ridiculous. Okay, Ian, are you okay?
Ooh.
No, not going to do quite enough damage. Viper, not quite the right level just yet. He was level 11, so that was 2 points in the Hemo Plague, but I would have expected it to do more damage there, given the fact that there's no MR on the Zoe at all.
Electrocute Vlad does so much damage. Out of nowhere, almost one pops from full health Ian, who now doesn't have flash against the Nocturnes. That's also going to be something to keep a track of, Atlas.
Yeah. Doesn't have a stopwatch either, which a lot of our Zoes do often like to keep on hand. MVP, the bottom lane now, standing at the mid lane, trying to pick things up, as there's a flash hanging out there in the mid lane for Ian if he wants to get it, but he's on the top side of the map, wanting to clear out that minion wave heading towards the turret.
And you know what? We've said MVP did this well, MVP did that well, and they deserve those rewards. The gold lead, it's absent, and Atlas, the teamfight team, is almost ready to pop.
Yep, Tarzan and Sword to try and get themselves in here onto ADD. He now knows absolutely nothing as the paranoia comes in after the slow. He's trying to run away, but it's just not going to happen. Cannon Barrage, there just to seal the deal.
They're going to use the combo on one member, but soon Atlas are going to be able to unleash their huge team fight. I think the moment Deathcap is there, the Sweet Hat is going to be the sign to start going for the fights. And MVP have needed to be one step ahead. They've made the right moves, and yet it might not count for enough. Because unfortunately, Griffin have been able to free farm, and that man, Vladimir, may answer the story. All this poke, all this range poke needs to stick, and they need to DPS down people before the commitment comes.
I do want to remind you of, one of the things that happened when Zoe first made her way into the meta.
Sure.
It felt that Zoe Ezreal compositions were really cool when it came to skirting around teamfights. And if you look at MVP, yes, the Singe doesn't yell teamfight to you, and having Hemo play Cannon Barrage sounds disgusting on the side of Griffin, but if somehow MVP are able to get that pick to start things off, their cleanup is so strong.
If the initial wombo doesn't work, I agree with you. But consider that they have targeted ult in Tarzan who'll build full AD and at least chunk somebody. And by somebody we mean either Zoe or Ezreal. From there, if Vladimir or Sword is hitting damage, if one of the two die, I think MVP doesn't actually have the ability to close the fight. And you can't really see a scenario where they press all their buttons and don't kill one of Zoe and Ezreal, especially if flashes are down. So even Ezreal with exhaust, even Ian, probably going to itemize into a Zhonya soon. It's such reliable engage because the Nocturne starts the story, and then either Vladimir, Alistar will come in and end it, that I just struggle to see how they pull it off. Max with the Galio ult or not.
Oh, I'm excited to see what can actually come of this one, because MVP still playing with confidence. But Griffin just slow and steady. This man Viper on the top side of the map just continuing to hoover up minions one after the other. This one a little bit more pesky than the other ones, as Max has built that Banner of Command on the bottom side.
Could be worse, could be old Banner of Command. And I don't even mean the pre-hotfix, I mean the one that was immune to the Vladimir damage.
That's true. The little blood spittles aren't very good.
MVP gonna take the Cloud Drake, but no reason to contest that. Don't feel good giving away a third Drake stack at 22 minutes, but not in position to fight it, and Vladimir will slowly take this turret in the top side.
Does mean that there is a potential win condition for MVP if they somehow drag this game out a little bit longer. Elder Drake with all of those dragons is going to feel pretty good. Okay, what is Griffin's next move? And who is the onus on at the moment in this game, Papa? Is it MVP to grab themselves a pick? Of course, previously known as a pick comp only team. Do they need to get one of those in order to make these team fights happen in their favor?
They have that duality where I actually really like the control ward line. Usually I'd say something about pushing vision up. You would like to put down some sight wards, but it's very difficult to do so as MVP because one of those buttons, especially the paranoia, is pressed, and then your siege comp is exposed. Your artillery is suddenly in melee range of a Nocturne and things go bad. So they've got a very good control ward line. They can turn and poke behind Baron. They want to siege and poke, but Griffin have such long range on specifically the Nocturne, the Gangplank ult is true global.
Yeah.
It's very difficult unless Max and Yondu are grouped together to get any vision clearing going. It's just such a seesaw right now. It's a very, very fine position. The gold lead is nil. When do you feel strong enough to start the Baron with no true tank, as ADD is going to be split pushing? There's no clear answers here for either team, and that's why it probably leads to the game extending and Griffin's initiation comp getting more and more gold.
Yeah, now what does it mean to have a marksman in your composition as well as we move towards the late game faster and faster? Is Maha going to be a deciding factor here, given the fact that Griffin don't actually have one of these ranged AD carries? They do have an incredibly powerful Vladimir that Viper is wielding with a lot of proficiency, but are we going to go back to this is what an AD carry is going to give us as the game goes on?
The conditional statement is, does Vladimir get in range of Ezreal or not? Because I think the best use of Nocturne ultimate is just purely onto Ian every time. You want to tussle with Ian. Ezreal's just too able to self-peel. If his flash is up, he has exhaust as well. I imagine Nocturne is going to spend his entire fight engineering the downfall of Ian. The Ezreal will have some latitude, but then the question is, can Vladimir close the distance? We'll have Spellbinder. It's a lot about where the fight is happening. If Ezreal's able to be involved in a fight where he can say Arcane Shift over a big wall and just rain in Qs, he's not against tanks. His damage is actually going to be huge at just Miramana and Trinity Force. But we have to be conditional. I think both Vladimir and Ezreal can end a fight with smart play. What actually happens, that's for us to watch it unfold in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what is going to happen as well, because there hasn't been a lot of games. Oftentimes we've had things decided very early on, whereas this, I can see it as not decided at all at this point. And you can see the gold is showing us exactly that fact. It's entirely even. Rather picking up the Ardent Sensor as well. That's just for Tarzan when he gets in there with the Wild Growth to try and get as many attacks off before he inevitably gets chunked out and dies.
All about the first rotation. Basically, as long as Lethal Tempo is active, he's going to be a god. And he's probably going to die. But if he takes down Ian or Maha with him, job's done.
He's like a berserker. I just want to see this team fight and see whether it works, and we might get it right now as Viper. That's a very early pull. Lots of flashes to come out. True Shot Barrage finds nothing as Lahens. He's got the ultimate, and now the Paranoia comes forward. The heroic entrance is not going to be enough as Yondu is going to fall, and Tarzan, he's going to go golden as well. Max is trying to escape, and it's ADD that actually gets himself into a great spot. Tarzan has to flash out of the way of the turret, and now Viper gets another pull in order to get himself out of the way, but is it enough? No! Ian with the follow-up, and this is what we were talking about. MVP can chase very, very nicely, but can they get on top of this Griffin squad? Looks like Sword is going to be the man who they focus on, and they're not going to be able to get there, and now turrets lie in their way.
Ends up being very, very even after everything. Griffin were very out of position. Rather on the Lulu was guilty of this in the first game of the season. He's also out of position now. It looked like MVP would win all hands down, but they weren't able to get any value out of Beyond's ult. So watch what happens here. Viper's caught, the follow flash doesn't catch him, and then ult's used on Lahens. He's slowly just walking around trying to be a juicy target. That's about the best case scenario for MVP when it comes to actually starting a fight of their own. This fight wasn't started by Griffin, it was started by MVP. But because Griffin are just a bit all over the place, Tarzan walks up, gets burned down. Man, that Leandries and the Poison Trail's doing a lot. This is the fight you talked about. What if everything's used by Griffin and Ezreal and Zoe are still alive? You got the answer. They rain in hell from range, and Griffin don't have any abilities left to commit to a fight.
Yeah, and I guess when the Wild Growth is used on Tarzan defensively and he's not able to get all of that extra attack speed and on-hit damage working for him, it just straight up doesn't work. So you're exactly right. It's like, I got what I pseudo-predicted, but it's purely because Griffin didn't quite manage to work out their engagement.
Even simpler, it's purely because, against expectation, MVP got to initiate a fight. I don't think MVP will initiate anymore. Griffin is in position with all their initiation to press the button and decide when fights start. Because they were doing a 1-3-1, MVP got a very rare chance to start a fight. They almost ended it, but they couldn't get the maximum MVP to really blow open the game.
Well, now they're going to spot Sword on the bottom side of the map. Has his teleport available so he can get to any Baron skirmish that they run into. And another banner of command has been picked up now from MVP. His composition is going to be very, very good at throwing minion waves over and over again into Griffin. Griffin does have a hell of a lot of wave clear to deal with it.
But MVP have a hell of a lot of Drakes because, you know, the third Drake giving up didn't feel great, but you had to. It was only a cloud. This is an Infernal at 28 minutes. They will force a 5th Drake to spawn because it is 6-minute respawn timer. We didn't get a spot as to what it is. I guess Ocean, given the
it's
top
really,
left of the screen.
I like it from Yondu as well because Yon means dragon in Korean. So he's able to live up to his namesake.
Even though he's actually named after a Guardians of the Galaxy character.
Yes, no, he certainly is. He likes whistling as well, guys, but he's going to do some dragons, so therefore the name also works that way. I like multifaceted name choices.
It definitely has layers.
Yeah. Just like I really like books of maps and Japanese video game companies.
I didn't realize that you were going to give me your life story. It wasn't even a cool story. It was just a long story.
Okay, yeah, never mind. I was just really proud of myself for knowing dragon in Korean. My lessons are finally working, Papa.
Can
Okay.
you actually achieve any level of conversation?
Absolutely not. Oh, I can ask for a beer.
Nice. All right,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Or an apple.
That was a useful lesson.
Probably should have said apple. PG-13 broadcast, but guys, I like beer.
I think letting them know that once in a while we partake in a beverage is probably fine. I don't think we can endorse drinking more than just that single beverage.
Gee Willikers, Papa Smith. You can't say things like that. Okay, Sword. Looking for ADD.
And the scuttle.
Oh, gets it! That's the value. That's why you press your Ghost Blade button. Pick up Scuttle Crabs. After that fight was theoretically won by MVP as well, Papa, it's actually Griffin that have come out ahead as far as gold is concerned. I know it's not necessarily something tangible that we can look at the moment being only 300, but it does mean that they haven't been affected by the fact that their inner turret has been taken in the mid lane whatsoever.
If Griffin used the buddy system, the problem for MVP is they return to lanes that are pushing, they push them out. They're never going to be able to force a 5v5, even with Hextech Ultimatum and the Hero's Entrance, the heroic entrance as we've called it. And now
Viper's
Griffin.
actually, yeah, looks for the Hemo Plague. In goes the ultimate, and once again the Paranoia is on a weird target. But they do get the Cannon Barrage onto Maha. He's completely out of the fight. True Shot Barrage, the only thing he can offer, and they lose Max. Sword making his way in as well. He's already used the ultimate. Now ADD wants to try and find the Pirate. They just pile onto this turret, though. And Griffin, they found the fight that they were looking for. Ian just trying to get poked.
And Malphite Orianna stage has been reached by Viper. He had a Whimsy on him, flashes at Maha and also Yondu, and 3/4 healths, both of them, out of the fight instantly. And that is the reality of this Vlad. If he gets anywhere near Ezreal or Zoe, they will not be partaking in a fight.
And Yondu as well. I mean, he's on not a very powerful Camille at this point. Still trying to piece together the Trinity Force. Only needs 333 gold. It's a little bit frustrating that he hasn't been able to grab it, but this is what happened earlier today when Bono was on the Camille and didn't find the early kills. The same thing has happened here for Yondu, despite the fact that he got some ganks off. Still hasn't been the beneficiary of any of the money.
He really does have not very much. We'll soon have a Trinity Force because only the recipe is required, but kind of reminds us some of the poor jungle Camille games we saw last season.
Yeah.
And Griffin, who do often play for the late game, who drafted for the late game, who gave up a lot of Rift Scuttles to make things happen to Yondu. Even with all those Scuttles, he hasn't been able to piece together relevant items. However, he's trying to make the Baron happen anyway.
Yep, they are going to get vision of it. The Baron is not actually going to be a thing. The Hens would have taken about 1 billion damage from that Paddle Star if Ian had have managed to land it, but not quite with the range that he wanted.
Flash is still on cooldown. Alistair's having to ult to stop this Baron, though. Starting the Baron, Max is able to tank it, so maybe this is the only way they can actually get back into the game. Big minion wave and topside. A lot of headaches for Griffin.
And what does MVP love? They love 50-50 Barons, and once again they're going to go for it. Cannon Barrage is going to deter them, and Max is stuck in this pit. In goes Tarzan once again. He's got the Wild Growth. Not a lot of mana here, though, and he's taking a lot of damage. Hero's entrance comes down. It was onto Yondu as they get Lehens out of this fight. 1-for-1 trade already as ADD boosts his way forward, and Maha, he's doing damage finally in the back line. The Paddle Star is going to land there as ADD is just playing gatekeeper for the rest of his team. MVP, they have found the fight that they were looking for, but Maha may have thrown it away. Sword just needs one auto and gets it. And now Ian, it's all on you to win this one. Jumps on top of Rather, but he's playing this beautifully. Ian still picks it up. And now Sword, it's theoretically a 1v1 as Yondu, he's basically nothing at the moment, but they are going to give it away.
They're able to win the fight while the minions are pushing. They'll lose the top lane inner turret unless this barrel can come online, waiting for it. Just about able to live. Sliver of health.
Oh, what is it, 55? Oh my goodness, that was my basketball jersey number in primary school. And more information that you just didn't need there, Papa. Take us through the replay.
So we have to consider everything that happens here. Nocturne goes in just wanting to wrap up the Galio as Alistair is flanking. Both of them die. Viper has to use his pull to get into the fight, and Viper actually just wastes his life. Another one of these AD carry players moving on to a Vlad, and so far his game's been excellent. Makes a mistake. It's so different to be primary initiate when you're used to be a cleanup in the AD carry role. So the Vlad doesn't get to the back line, ends up with a bit of yakety sack, so it goes pretty even, all things considered. But man, when there's flashes on the ground, you can do cool things as a Zoe.
Yeah, Ian sort of demonstrating that perfectly. Doesn't go for the fight finisher against Sword, but we know exactly what he's capable of. A casual 5-0-2 right now, and I believe didn't even have to use his Zhonya's Hourglass in that fight. We've got a 5th Dragon coming in for MVP, setting themselves up for another Dragon, the Elder Drake, to be coming up next. It's going to be in 6 minutes after this. So a 41-minute Elder Drake means that theoretically we should never see it because our longest game hasn't even been that long.
You can tell how farmed Viper is because he kind of just ulted in that fight and died and still did the most damage for his team. So a better team fight does await. He is the strongest 0-2-3 Vladimir you've ever seen. But ADD with double banner of command minions by his side. This is what happens when you pick team fight Wombo against Siege and Split. The Siege and Split, after the team fight is over, while the cooldowns are waiting for, while Griffin are waiting to put down their vision again, will often get a bit more incremental gold. And what will the game state be like in about 5 minutes when Baron could still be on the Rift, the Elder spawns, and suddenly Griffin have to choose the right fight, or they might just lose straight up.
Yeah, MVP still just playing the waiting game. They're waiting for ADD to be able to shove towards turrets and effectively challenge Sword. He's got a Morellonomicon here as well. As in goes Lehens. He was looking for a potential engage. The rest of the team deciding to pull him back.
Well, it's never just Lehens, right? If he finds the right headbutt, Pulverize, in swoons
and MVP, you saw them all run the hell away. They knew that the cavalry was behind the cow, which is a confusing statement.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like it's a little bit backward.
MVP going to be able to recreate, or at least pick up a lot of control around the Baron. Lehens, I believe, is on the flank again.
Yeah, and he's going to be discovered as well. As in goes Yondu. Lehens, he's going to be able to get out of there. The headbutt in the Hextech Ultimatum was good, but where does he go now?
And what happens around him? Here's
the Paranoia is going to come in. Viper, really good choke point to try and get down the Hemoplague, but he's out of this fight already. It's going to be Viper getting it with the pop, and now it's 2 kills. MVP have to scatter because Griffin, they found the fight they were looking for, and it took Lehens to put them on a goose chase.
He was able to disengage the ultimatum, didn't die instantly, and Viper got in, and that's all you needed from the Vladimir. They're starting up the Baron. There is still 2 healthy members here because ADD can teleport back in, but Maha's health, it's going down fast.
Yep, 1 Q probably would have been enough if the Crimson Rush was there, but that is going to be the Baron going over to Griffin, and I feel like this is the pivotal moment in this game where Griffin feel like they have it in the bag.
Viper got the team fight finally. The last one did not go his way. This one, he could close the distance. Probably wishes he went Ghost Flash to start, but went for the teleport just to get through the laning phase. It was a rough one. Lehens buys a lot of time. And while Vlad's Tides of Blood doesn't hit, he comes in, he hits his ult onto multiples. burns down the rest, and we've reached critical mass a long time ago. So it's just a war crime by the Vladimir, able to just run through, take down everyone. No one is a tank to this lineup from Griffin, and the Baron took a long time, but finally there for the teamfight squad.
Yep, and Tarzan, you saw his spell shield on the paddle star to open up that fight. If he didn't get that, I have a feeling he just would have been straight up dead. So the whole fight would have been very, very different at that point in time. However, hindsight is 20/20, and Griffin were able to walk away with it. First death of the game for Ian.
Vladimir.
Jesus. Yeah, that's just silly.
That's why I say it, Malphite Orianna in and of himself. You used to need 2 champions to be able to get to a back line and explode it. Vladimir does it on a pretty low cooldown if his Flash and if his Shirelius. And he went Shirelius late, by the way, because he knows he's doing enough damage.
He's got a very large amount of movement speed right now with that Spellbinder there as well.
100 stacks, baby. Ready to
real
go
scary.
and pull this one off. I assume that the Zeke's convergence is on the Nocturne, but I guess situationally might be put onto the Gangplank as well.
Yeah, I like how many weird and wonderful options you have for a lot of these support items that often you just assume are going to be on an AD carry in this stage of the game.
And, you know, the Fed Vladimir in the late game is certainly going to be outdoing the Fed Ezreal, sadly, because they kind of counter each other when you have Vladimir and Nocturne to run at poor little Ezreal.
Yep, and speaking of running at him, he's going to have to get the heck out of this one. The Hemo Plague is on, though. Really good use of the Zhonya's here for Ian to try and keep him alive, but it's not going to work. Sword's going to be able to lock down that kill. ADD going to burn to death, and Tarzan goes down to his GA. His job is completely done. They get rid of the inner turret. This inhibitor turret is going to melt at the hands of Griffin, and I have a feeling that that's all she wrote for this game. They've got a bannered up minion to get this one through, and Viper is doing so much work. He goes golden as well. The Hemo Plague doing all of the work. See you later, MVP. See you in game number 2 as Griffin wrap this one up.
Such good work in the early game by MVP. They kept trading up, but eventually you press R and run at them if you're Vladimir and friends. Nocturne Vlad initiate, one of Ezreal and Zoe goes pop, and that's why I said, Atlas, you can never count out the team that has the crazy late game team fight, and that is Griffin as a squad. They have always been like this in 2018. Looking to go 17-0 on best of 3s, and you'd be a betting man to say that MVP could find a way back.
Yep, it's going to be really scary. Moving to game number 2, Griffin, what else do they have up their sleeve? Because you have to never let them get Vladimir ever again. Viper just looks so damn good, and we were singing all of his praises all the way through the Challenger Series, all the way through the promotion tournament. His AD carry play, out of control. How do you then transition that to a team-fighting mage that relies on initiating with a flanking maneuver? That's exactly not what a marksman is.
I see the replay. Watch what he does to Maha. This is AD carry versus the marksman of the world. That is Vladimir. He rushes in. He doesn't actually get the kill credit, but, you know, he did 99% of the work, so that's just Vladimir for you. It's why he is such a high priority. First picked in many different games. And, you know, you look at Viper's solo queue. He was popping off on Yasuo. He was popping off on the non-AD carry. This guy's mechanics are completely off the chain, and you know what? His team fighting, bar one example, pretty damn good on the Vladimir.
Yeah, and we sort of had experiences of that with our first series of the day, but Viper really having only one minor blooper. I feel like mid laners have certainly had that as well on the Vladimir, so I'm going to forgive him for it. Top damage is going to go to the Cannon Barrage user, who just throws them over the map.
Hey,
smashes Singed
he
elsewhere.
parlayed the crazy mad scientist a few times.
A few times, a hell of a lot of times. The damn Viper still doing more damage than anyone on the side of MVP. ADD trying to get up there, but look, MVP certainly had their moments.
Maybe we need to see Pilot back for game number 2 as well.
Yeah, does that mean that they are going to use the flexibility of Pilot, who does like mixing things up a little bit more? He played the Lulu Fiddlesticks lane that led them to a victory.